And a very good morning to you. Welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Morte. If you're getting us in the capital, raining overnight, of course, pretty grey in the morning, and it'll make sure that the discussion here definitely going to heat you up on this one because it's an issue we've seen on the floor of the Senate severally. And the question is, are we seeing any light at the end of the tunnel? Or are we bracing ourselves for a couple of more rounds as far as the debate on allocation of revenue is concerned? My panel really experienced and ready to give us some much needed analysis on this and plenty more. Welcome to the show. As always, you can get me at I am Jeff Morton or at K24 TV. Our WhatsApp number scrolling at the bottom of your screen. And as you do that, in case you want to get clued in as well on the big stories of the day, you can get that straight to your phone, all courtesy of the People Daily. It only costs you 10 shillings. And you can get a copy of your PD to your phone for only 10 bob by dialing the number star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, that number is star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number, get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. And it's brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom, so don't be left behind by all the news. Dial that number star 550 star 4 hash and get yourself a copy of your People Daily, brought to you by the PD and Safaricom. Speaking of, let's look at the front page of the People Daily today. Making of a super alliance, they call it. Raila proposed as one-term president and Kenneth as prime minister in lineup that seeks to have kingpins from all regions of the country. So there you have it, key persons of interest in terms of the political landscape and what this might mean moving forward. To that critical 2022 poll right there, Gideon Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Peter Munya, Peter Kenneth, Hassan Joho, and Mukisa Kitui, whose name has come up severally in country politics, and that's what can be found in your copy of your People Daily therein. As you look at that, reflecting on 10 years after the promulgation of the Constitution, Nzamba Kitonga says it is ripe for change. In a new series by the PD marking a decade of the Supreme Law, the chair of the team that put together the 2010 document highlights some of the areas that require review. That can be found on page 4 and 5 of your People Daily today. And even as you look at that, uproar over billions lost in COVID tenders, a key issue of concern right there. And even as you look at the money lost, you look at the lives being affected by this particular pandemic. As of yesterday, 246 recorded positive in the last 24 hours. That brings the total caseload in the country to 32,364. That story can be found in your copy of your People Daily this morning. You can get it and get fully informed as to that particular story. Front page of the Standard now. War erupts over COVID funds probe. What they said and what they're doing as far as this is concerned is a question right there. DP Ruto, the former opposition now turned lords of corruption, attempted defense of the COVID grand larceny is not shocking. And a rejoinder from the former PM. How does that become a loss when the government has given someone a tender? The only problem would be if you create some sort of monopoly. So the utterance has been made right there. Of course, the government not speaking with one voice as far as this is concerned, but that story can be found in your copy of your Standard in that particular page 6 of your Standard. We move right along to the front page of the Daily Nation. Uhuru's firm grip on power in COVID season. Since the virus struck, President has made major strides in taming political march of his deputy, and with talk of a reshuffle once cabinet returns from recess, the pandemic could be a blessing in a storm. So the political angle as to all that's going on, they're calling it an administrative state now stronger. That story can be found in your copy of your Daily Nation therein. Also, schools to get 1.6 billion shillings in preparation for opening. And as I get the money, the bigger question really is in terms of the infrastructure and all the other measures that need to be put in place. Have they managed to do that, even as we get closer to that particular opening of the academic calendar? And that story can be found as well in your copy of your Daily Nation. We move it along to the front page of the Star now. Ruto and Raila at war over KEMSA probe. ODM says calling for an audit at the agency is not a defense of theft. Deputy President says opposition was never interested in the welfare of Kenyans. So it almost feels like this particular scandal taking a political angle as to the utterances being made. And that story can be found in the Star. But also in the Star, BBI report to be released soon, says Raila Odinga. ODM boss Raila Odinga has revealed that the long-awaited BBI initiative report could be released in days. This he said from his Capitol Hill office, and very many people waiting for that particular report at this particular point in time. And more importantly, what this really means at this point, where very many have lost jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the economy being really battered hard by that particular pandemic. And that story can be found in your copy of your Star as well. That is on page 4 and 5 of your Star. Finally, from page page of the Business Daily. Kenya Airways says to lay off half of millionaire pilots. National carrier says it will require 50 to 60% of its current pilots who take home an average monthly pay of 1.3 million shillings on this particular issue. Of course, as they struggle to just balance the books in terms of their particular sector, hard hit by COVID pandemic. Not only Kenya Airways, but the aviation industry as a whole, right across the globe, really hard hit by this particular pandemic. So all airlines just trying their best to stay afloat during these COVID times. That story makes front and center in your copy of your Business Daily therein. So lots to discuss from that particular angle. But today we are talking about the revenue of allocation bill that has seen more drama and more heat than light in this particular one. So we're trying to shed some light and ask ourselves, could this be the week we actually get to the bottom of it and resolve this on the floor of the Senate? A very able panel to go through this particular discussion. We want your views as well. You can get me again, as always, at I am Jeff Morte or at K24 TV. Good morning. And a very good morning. Let me get to my panel as we get ready for this particular discussion. In studio, joined by former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Farah Maalim. Good morning, sir.
Morning to you. How are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time to be on the show this morning. Also being joined in the conversation via Skype. I know he doesn't mean like to be called the former Kiambu governor, so let's go with the first governor of Kiambu. Good morning, William Kabogo.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Asante, nashukuru.
Karibu sana. So of course, as we're looking at it right now, front and center, the big question really, are we out of the woods as far as this particular debate is concerned? Let me start in studio with Mr. Maalim. We've seen this on the floor of the House severally, theatrics outside of the House with arrests being made, really high drama on this. Now they have a committee put together, a 12-man committee to see this through. Do you think this time round, we are lucky we get this sorted out this week? It's done and dusted?
I don't think so. Because we fixed ourselves into a cul-de-sac. You can't go forward. You can only go backwards.
Mm-hmm. What's that cul-de-sac?
The cul-de-sac is that the National Assembly has already done their preparation, and it has only got 316.5 billion Kenya shillings for the counties.
Right.
And the only way you cannot also take away from the counties what you call legitimate expectations. This is what they were having before. This is the amount of money that they used to use before. So you can't take away from the certain counties to give it to other counties.
Right.
So the only way was to create a formula that entails more revenue, so that you can take care of the ones who feel left out or marginalized in this new, what do you call, concept of marginalization, which is just, is a fresh phenomenon in ourselves, without taking away from those ones who have always had it.
Right.
And so what do? You can't say, let's go back and take away half of that from them or go backwards or forward. It's a problem. It's a serious problem. There got to be losers and winners in this case.
Right.
And I think the business of trying to keep on postponing these things is because there's a massive pressure from the executive. And now the executive should leave the Senate alone. Let this debate be concluded. We go back again. And if Parliament has got to go back again and redo some kind of an appropriation, it's another matter that you have to look at it both within the practice of the House itself, within the Constitution and the laws.
Right.
But then without those additional, or maybe use the central government to be able to, whatever, top up in one way or the other on certain areas in those other the counties that have not been taken care of. So the only way you can unlock this impasse is to have a way in which all these forces are going to work together. But as far as I'm concerned, Senate should be allowed to conclude its business itself, because some of the adjournments that have taken place are not in line with the practice of the House itself.
And you'll be talking about that in just a bit. Let me get Mr. Kabogo in on this one as well. As you hear there, Mr. Maalim, very pessimistic on this one. Doesn't feel like we're out of the woods, at least as far as this particular debate is concerned in the Senate. Again, I'll pose it to you, because we've seen the drama that has been brought in place. Now they've brought all the differing voices into a committee 12-man committee on this one to try and get some middle ground and build some consensus on this. Do you think on Tuesday we get this done at the Senate?
Well, I'm not. I don't get you very clearly, but I hope that question is for me. You know, my thinking is it's taken 10 sittings now so far, and we expect the committee to do, or the Senate committee, or the ad hoc committee, if you like, to come up with a formula that is acceptable as middle ground. But my question is, middle ground for who? You know, what I see happening at the Senate myself, and I said this earlier, and I've been saying this all week, is too much partisan issues about politics, issues about 2022, issues about who will win and who will lose. And as far as I'm concerned, where we should have started, or where they should have started, is the issue of the old formula, the formula that had 45% population, 25% basic share, land 8%, poverty 14%, physical prudence 2%. What is it that we would have done to that formula to improve? But when you look at people saying, no, they are marginalized counties, they were marginalized for long, does it mean that we have to marginalize others to equalize? Are we supposed to equalize marginalization, or to equalize, to have equitable share of resources? Again, the biggest problem we have here is they're sharing 316 billion. Out of 1.9 trillion, they're sharing 316 billion. And you know very well, the most functions, or the necessary functions, so to speak, health, water, agriculture, those are devolved functions. Why would 75% of functions go to the counties and then devolve only 15% or 10% of the national revenues? So really, that's where the problem is. I do not agree with those who are saying, let's share, and those who lose, let them lose. What I would imagine is, find out how many counties are going to lose. What is it that they're going to lose? And let's freeze what it is that they get, or they got this year or last year. Freeze it, and that is the minimum they should get. Then top up the total amount to be able to give highly populated counties enough money to cause growth. Because, for example, Nairobi, Kiambu, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, those counties will never grow. Because, for example, if I speak on behalf of Kiambu, when I was governor, the net effect of what we were getting, 80 billion, 7.5 were going to recurrent expenditure. So really, if we were not to have any revenues from ourselves, our own source, then it means we would have just had 500 million. A place like Nyeri would not meet their recurrent expenditure from the share that they were getting. So really, is Nyeri not marginalized? Is Mombasa not marginalized? We have counties like Turkana getting, say, 14 billion, when their workforce is hardly 400 million. So what are we saying here? Are we not saying that we continue to marginalize highly populated places? Again, these places, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Kiambu, this is where revenues are generated. So we continue to marginalize them, collect revenues from them. Why is no one saying, let's put a parameter there that gives money to where money comes from, even if it is 5%? But you know what is guiding the discussions inside the Senate is politics. And it's very sad. It's very sad.
And even as you look at what's guiding this particular and informing this discussion, even on the floor of the House, Mr. Maalim, I'll come to you, because this particular formula was presented to the Senate early last year, 2019. And it seems like it was brought, for those who haven't been following this, one would think that it was brought to the House a couple of months ago, and that's why we're having this rush to clear this before this money is given out. Was this a procedural oversight that they didn't have enough time to debate this? Because clearly, if there were such contentious issues, we should have started talking about this a long time ago.
Yes, yes, indeed, yes. And this is the thing. This kind of debates right now and this kind of logjam should have happened that early. I do agree with you in that, and I don't understand why. But I have a feeling that nobody was willing to move forward on the formula itself and how it was going to impact on the other counties. The important thing is that there is no way a chairman or a member of a committee is going to support a formula that essentially is going to take away money from his own county or her own county. And many others will say, no, it's not right. Exactly as Kabogo is saying, and I agree with him fully, that you don't have to go and take away from the mouths of people to go and feed somebody else. You have to create more, what do you call, resources.
Right.
You see, this whole thing is becoming a very tricky political saga, as Kabogo is putting it. Because even if you have to do it on the basis of population, we did the previous ones on the basis of population.
Right.
People like where I come from say that, look, these population numbers last time were doctored, seriously doctored. And you know, go to a constituency like Balambala. You have 60,000 school-going children. You have 32,000 voters there. And you have, I can't remember, about 30,000 reflected as a population. I mean, how does that work? And many of them are also like that, including like Dera, which was there, which had over 100,000 people as in the 2009 population census. And then suddenly there's this. So there is no trust. In a country, there has to be trust. The movers and shakers, the leaders of the country must earn the trust of the four corners of the country. They do not have to be seen as the paramount chiefs of a section of the country, and all that they're doing is to try and take the resources and everything as much as possible to that part. You see what I mean? So we have a problem. We have a problem, and our whole legitimacy as a nation itself is coming to a question. And then when you see all these things, and over a period of time, and the very first time when we got independence, and there was sessional paper number 10, which it was intensification of the government's investments in terms of resources on the high potential areas as opposed to the low potential areas. Effectively marginalizing and completely cutting off a whole swath of the country itself. And saying that you don't deserve to have a good life because you don't produce. And at the same time, even that production definition itself was highly flawed. But basically it meant that ethnicity itself and regionalism itself took a much bigger hold than we had before. So we got a new constitution. We have a new dispensation. We have two houses to try and get away from that past and come into a nation. We have a state, so let's form a Kenyan nation. Now, the way we're doing right now of saying they don't deserve this much is bad. It's bad for the country, for the future. Because then nobody's going to trust your numbers. Nobody's going to trust whatever you say. And if you're at the highest office in the country, or in the high office in the country, and people don't trust you, a section of the country sees you just as a tribal overlord who's trying to take from everybody else to take to his own community. Or you're a minister, they see the same thing. Or you're a member of parliament, they see the same thing. Because effectively, a member of parliament you don't have to be registered in the constituency you represent for you to contest in that constituency. It's not like an MCA. I can be registered as a voter in Kisumu and run for a parliamentary or a senate seat in Northeastern Province or in Upper Eastern or in wherever I want to do, or Central Province. That basically is to give you the national touch. As Kabogo says, we have a country and we need to unite the country. So by either maintaining a certain marginalization of a section, as he puts it, that essentially feels aggrieved, or taking away from a previously marginalized one to try and make more resources available to this. But they're both not the solutions. Bake a bigger cake. You get my point? And let's get a lot of things right first. Then, of course, let's move on as a country.
And let's talk about this particular cake, Mr. Kabogo, because we're at a point in time where when you look at the Senate, it really doesn't have that many functions when you think about it. They are either representing, legislating, and this is one of those when it comes to allocation of revenue. But it seems like on this function, they are really failing on this one. Whose responsibility now is it to get them out of the woods, Mr. Kabogo? Because it's not the chief whip, because he's having a challenge. It's not the majority leader. The speaker is also having challenges on the House. Who solves this?
There's something wrong with your sound quality. I'm not getting you properly.
Okay, as they try and sort out the technical issue on the audio right there, let me try and repeat that question for you. Just as I try and sort it out, let me bring that question back to studio with Maalim. Right now, who do you think, in your best opinion, would just shepherd this forward? Because
I think in the first place, we needed to completely unlock Senate had to do its role. You have this debate. The debate is either carried or lost.
Right.
You see what I mean? So this, what you call, and the Speaker has absolutely no role. He's an ex-officio member of the House.
Right.
His role is basically to facilitate. He does not have our powers to adjourn a House.
Right.
You see what I mean?
And he's done that severally.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have any powers to adjourn a House. So we've already messed up our rules of management of the House itself.
Right.
Which is very bad, in my opinion. I don't think it ever happened in any other time in the past. So that one is a problem. Let's dispose of this thing and then come back together and say, then, how do we deal with these things? How do we deal with the further marginalization of areas that essentially are high potential and need to be topped up? You see what I mean? And then we proceed on that. You see, you don't have to have a winner-loser in a country. Winning and losing is a problem.
Right.
You have to have a win-win situation.
And that's what everyone is saying. But when it comes to the flow of the House, it
flow
seems like it moves from formula to more politics.
No, we are in a cult. We locked ourselves into a very bad situation. We were unable to move forward. How do you move forward? Take away from some and give to others?
Right.
Leave the others to have these things and leave some of them also, like as he puts it, the high potential areas with minimum, what do you call, with what they feel a new marginalization formula? No. You need to deal with both of them. First of all, dispose of this thing. Let's have a loser and a winner in this thing. And then come back together as a country.
Right.
And say, look, we cannot continue like this. It's much easier to say Kiambu was getting 8 billion shillings before. And that is not enough for Kiambu. How do we then go back to the central government and bring in additional resources to make it 10 billion or 11 billion, whatever you want to do it?
Right.
As opposed to saying, let's take from Ojira and give it to Kiambu. You see what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's very bad. I don't know whether politicians and leaders in this country are conscious of what we're doing to ourselves.
And even as you talk about that, I hope Mr. Kabogo's audio issue has been sorted out as they sort out on that one. Because one other debate that we've heard, and a rallying call we've heard right there, is the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. And that's what's being touted as part of this particular debate. What's your take on that, Mr. Maalim?
Well, it's an absolute nonsense. It's basically trying to... It's a competition for who owns this country. You see what I mean? It's like I can overload on you. If I say 1 person, one shilling, 1 kilometer or 1 meter, whatever it is, then of course everybody knows where the numbers are.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
If somebody else says 1 man, they also know where that thing is. None of them is there to take care of this country.
Right.
Each one of them is to say, now I can step on the others.
Right.
You see what I mean? And that's not the way to run a country.
Right.
That's not the way to run a country.
And even
so both formulas, in my opinion, both formulas are wrong. The formulas had been given some weights before, but then both formulas are, in my opinion, not right.
Okay.
At this stage, you need to have both. A kind of hybrid
of both of them,
of both of them, with proper weighting on each one of them,
right?
And also to look at certain historical things. For example, you know, when a common citizen in Northeastern Province, in Mandera, hears of members of parliament from the mountain region saying, "Now these people do not deserve all this money," and then he travels in Central Province and he sees 40,000, 50,000, I don't know how many thousand kilometers of tarmac. And all we can boast in the whole province is less than 150. 100, I think, 100 up to Modogashi and probably another 20 or 30 in the urban areas. Then what do you get?
Right.
You get somebody who says, look, we're going to Kenya. The same way when somebody's coming from Turkana, he says, I'm going to Kenya. You see what I mean?
Right.
The kind of starvations and the kind of abject poverty that you always observe in every famine in Rift Valley, in parts of Rift Valley like Turkana, Marsabit, Moyale, and all these places.
Okay.
Now, you see, these are the kind of things we need to mitigate. Then you look at it also historically. How much money was put into these areas for the 57 years we've had independence? It's only the last since we got this new dispensation of the county system in there, which is the new dispensation, this, you know,
With
the
devolution
bicameral system and the county system itself, which is only since 2013.
Okay.
Part of 2013, and now it's about 7-8 years. But we've already had over 50 years before that, in which these people were completely left out.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that we cannot afford to marginalize our high potential areas. We cannot equally afford to marginalize the low potential areas. We need to bring them all up to speed. Those ones have got to be brought. The equalization fund has got to be increased. It's a paltry 0.5%, and everybody has now joined into that definition of what is called a marginalized area in that context.
Okay, what I want to do at this particular point is take a short break, because I can feel Mr. Kabogo really wants to weigh in on this one. But I want to take a short break.
We've lost him.
We are going to get him back on this particular conversation as well. And you want your input, you can get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Don't forget, you can get yourself a copy of your PD. It's only 10 shillings. The number that you dial, *550*4#. Once again, the number is *550*4#. Back after the break, talking about how to just solve this impasse as we move forward as far as revenue allocation is concerned. Right back after the break.